doing our split stitch. So you're gonna start at the end of your line and pull your thread through. And then you're going to make a slightly longer stitch than what we've been practicing so far. And when you bring your needle back up, you are going to split your thread. So you're gonna come up in between where you started and ended that stitch, and you're gonna come in between your threads with your needle. So you can see that my thread is coming up between these threads. And then you're gonna continue down that way by making a new stitch and then coming up between your last stitch. You can decide how closely you want these to overlap, if you want them a little more spread out or a little closer together. This is a different option for making a more continuous line. And you're done. All right, next up, we are gonna jump over and do our blanket stitch. So you're gonna start by coming up on your line, and then instead of pushing the needle back in on your line, you're going to push it back in kind of at a diagonal right above the line. And before you pull this all the way through, just like the chain stitch, you're going to push your needle back up on the line right underneath where we went in above the line, and you're gonna catch this loop right here. And it's gonna make a little right angle for you. And then you'll push your needle back in a little bit over and above the line, pull it through part of the way, push your needle up on the line, and pull it all the way through. Above the line, push it in, and right underneath it on the line, pull it all the way through. If yours get a little bit crooked like this, you can always take the tip of your needle and kind of tug your stitches a little bit just to get them a little bit more neatly lined up. You can also hold your hoop by putting your thumb over top of the stitches that you've already sewn, and that'll kind of help keep them in place as well. So push in back above the line, and right on the line. Above the line. And right on the line. The more that you can get these to be right underneath each other, the neater that your stitches will look. Oop, I did that wrong. Try that again. And then to finish this one off, just like the chain stitch, after you finish your last corner, you can either anchor it right here, right on the other side of your stitch, and make a little anchor, if you want it to end on a corner, or if you would like it to end on a long one, on a long stitch, when you are coming up from the corner like this, you can just take one more stitch straight to the side to finish that off. There you have it. Is going to be the easiest stitch that we do. So for a straight stitch, you are just making a straight line. Obviously, this is only going to work for if you are making a straight line, but you're gonna pull it out at one end of your line and push it back in again at the other end of your line. So the benefit of this is that it's gonna give you the cleanest and most continuous line. But the downside is that it's a little bit on the loose side, so it can be kind of hard to get this to lay perfectly flat if that's what you're going for, because it's not anchored down in between, it's just loose. So you'll definitely want to make sure that you tie this off tightly before you move on. You could even tie it off to the chain stitch on the back up here. The next one that we're going to do is the bullion knot, which is like a very long French knot. So we're going to start by coming up at the end of our line, and then tuck it back through your fabric. So you're going to come from one end back to the other, and before you pull your thread all the way through, you're gonna wrap 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 times. So you're gonna get a lot of thread that is all wound up on there, and you're gonna pull it all the way through. Might have to fuss around with it for a little bit, but you'll get it eventually. And then just like the French knot, you're gonna kind of control it as it goes in so it doesn't go too far. And then you'll get all of this thread wound up on the surface, and then you'll just tuck your needle back in at the end to anchor it in place. The more that you do this, the more that you'll get the feel for getting things nice and even. So we'll do that again. So you're gonna go up, pull it through. And I can make it easier if instead of going straight through, you do the full around. So you're gonna push it in a little bit and then bring it back up a little bit, just so your needle comes through, and then twist 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. If you twist these really tight, it's gonna be hard to get it off your needle. That's what happened with my last one. So you don't have to do it super, super tight. You can make it a little bit more loose. And then you'll work it off your needle little by little. Kind of hold it in place here, and then pull your thread the rest of the way through. Whoop. Tug, tug, tug. There you go. And then you just have to go back down into that first hole that you made to anchor it. And one more time. So we'll come up, go stitch, pull it through, but leave a nice long loop. Come back up from your first hole. Whoop, and then wrap. I'm going to try to do it looser this time. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. You'll notice that I'm kind of scooting my little wraps down with my pointer finger as I go so that they all fit. 13, 14, 15. Okay, now it's time to slide it off. Pull through nice and gentle. You kind of scooch them so that everything gets nice and neat. And then back down. And you're done. Do the woven rose next, and for this you want a full 6 strands. So don't split your thread like this. You want a whole one. You're going to start by coming up through the center, and you're going to make 5 spokes that are going from the center to the outside. You can do this however it makes sense, but it does need to be an uneven number, so make sure that you make 5, not 6. And try to get them as evenly spaced as you can. So once you've got your 5 spokes, you're going to come up from the center and you're going to begin weaving your needle over and under these spokes. That's why it's called the woven rose. So I would start on one that's kind of on the opposite side from wherever your thread's coming. So I'm going to start over here, and I'm going to go under the first one and then over and under, and then I'm going to pull it through. And I went under last, so I'm going to go over this next one, and then under, over, under. I like doing about 3 at a time because that's about as far as your needle can go. And each time that you pull, you're going to pull the thread into the middle. You don't want to pull super, super tight because it'll take forever to build up if you do that, but you want to pull it tight enough so that there aren't gaps showing. All right, so I just went under, so over, under, over, under, over, under. So if at any point you start to run out of thread, you want to make sure that you tie it off, make it secure, and then start with a new length of thread, which is what I just did. So I'm finishing my rows off now, and you are finished when you can't see any of the spokes at the edges anymore. So I've still got a little ways to go, but that is okay. Once you've gotten your rows to the point that you can't see any of the spokes, you're gonna take your needle and you are gonna tuck it underneath the side of your rows and then poke it back down sort of towards the middle. What you wanna do is hide that last little piece of tail. So bring it all the way in, and then you can see that it's hidden on the front side, and then you'll go ahead and tie it off in the back. This is a lot of thread, so you might want to do an extra anchor knot or two just to make sure that it doesn't come undone and you lose all of that thread that you've wound up. And then you're done. Okay, so to do our long and short satin stitch, we're going to start the same way that we did for the satin stitch, where you're starting from the bottom left of your shape. But instead of taking your stitch all the way to the top, you are going to take it somewhere around halfway. So as you work across, all of your stitches are going to vary up and down, kind of like blades of grass. So you can be a little random with this. It does not have to be super perfect, but you just want to make sure that each time that you're starting a new stitch, that you're starting it from this bottom line. And you're going to work from left to right all the way across, filling up the bottom half of your shape with a variety of different lines. Just like the satin stitch, you want to make sure that you don't leave gaps in between your stitches. And if you do so by accident, you can always go back and fill your space in. So I'll show you what that might look like. So if I did this stitch, and then I realized, oh, there's a gap in between there, I'm gonna backtrack and fill that in before I go any further, just to make sure that you don't see any gaps. So when you reach the end of your shape, so I've made it over to the left side, and I'm going to try to get this a little bit brighter. There we go. So once you get it over all the way to the left side, then you're going to start back over here on the left side again. Now you can do this with the same color to do like a little bit of an added texture inside your shape, like the satin stitch, just like a more textured version, or you can switch to another color. And for this, I'm going to suggest that if you switch to a color that's right next to the color that you currently are working with on the color wheel. So I've been working with purple, so I'm going to work with a lighter purple. If you're working with orange, you could switch to yellow or red, you know, something that is going to be analogous color-wise. But this is going to start to look like more of a color blend. So instead of coming from the bottom corner, I'm going to come from the top corner. And I'm going to take one stitch that is just a little bit longer than meeting up exactly with my stitch. So instead of going back into the same hole, I'm going to go just a little bit further down, and I'm going to pull through. And then with my next stitch, I'm going to go even further down to fill in this little gap right here. And so on. So just the same way that you did with your first color, you want to make sure that you aren't leaving gaps in between your stitches, and if you do see a gap, just go back and fill it back in. But you're going to work your way all the way across, filling this in. And you want to try as much as you can to get some nice overlapping as you are bringing your stitches down, so that you don't see holes where both of your threads are coming into the same hole, your top thread and your bottom thread. It'll look a little nicer if you get some of those stitches kind of in between the bottom stitches rather than right in the same entry point. and you're just going to continue across. So as you get down to the end, you're going to just make sure that everything seems like it's meeting up evenly the way that you want. And if you need to finish off with a back stitch or a straight stitch to clean up your edges, you can also do that with this. If you are sewing a space that is supposed to fade from one color to the next, this is a really nice way to do it, and to get a little bit more of a subtle change from one color to the next, make it look a little more gradual than just having solid blocks of color as you go across. And as you finish off, you'll just tie it off in the back. You're done. So for our last stitch, we're going to be doing the fishbone stitch. So this is a really great stitch to do a leaf shape. So you're going to start up at the top at the point of the leaf where it's going to be furthest from your stem. You're going to bring it through, and got a little fuzzy there. Okay. And you're going to take your first stitch will come straight down, like towards the center, and maybe like, I think that's maybe 1/4 of an inch. So that's going to begin your design. And then from each stitch here on out, you're going to be alternating from going on the left side of the center line and then the right side of the center line. So our first one, we're going to go on the left right next to that first stitch. And we're going to just barely bring it across the first stitch and down just a little bit further. Like this. Okay? So you can see it's just barely sitting on top of that first stitch. Now we're going to come over on our right side, and we're going to take it just a little bit over the last stitch that we made. So down and just a little bit over. And then you're going to go back over to your left side, down and a little over. Back to the right side, down and a little bit over. Left side. Okay. As you go, you're going to start to get this really lovely overlapping effect where the threads are kind of weaving over top of each other to fill in the space. All right, so there we have a really lovely, highly textured little area of sewing. So that is an excellent way to make a leaf. Last up, we're just going to do a bonus fern stitch. So this is a pretty straightforward stitch, and I'm going to show you the simplest version first, and then how you can make it a little bit more intricate. So the fern stitch is just following a straight line with some little V's across it. It looks especially nice if you start with wider V's at the bottom and then make them smaller as you go. But you're just making individual stitches that follow each of the little line segments to make the idea of the different leaves and the stem that they are growing off of. So you're just going into the top of each segment and then into the bottom. So that is a way to start the fern stitch. If you want to do something that's a little bit more intricate or feels like it's a little bit more continuous, you can start by doing a stem stitch up the stem, where you're gonna come up, make a stitch, but don't close the loop, and come up in the center, make a stitch, come up but don't close the loop, make a stitch, come up but don't close the loop. And just a reminder on the stem stitch, the smaller that you make your stitches, the nicer it will turn out, and the more that you'll see that spiral.
Well, it is hard for me, but I just don't know. It's so confusing. There's like 5 different types of things. I know. You know it, right? I'm so sure.
Stem stitch is also really good for going around these small curves. So if you want to make a little curl at the top of your fern stitch, you can do that with the stem stitch pretty successfully. It off at the end. So that gives you the stem.
You like go for homework and then that's pretty much it. Who's your teacher, Grimes or something? I was.
Then you can go back in.
It's in the bathroom, in the stall, and they're using it as the shield.
And then you can go back in and just finish off each of the little fern pieces to finish off this fern stitch. It's up to you if you like doing the stem stitch for the center or doing single stitches.